When you are attacked, when you are accused, when your integrity is questioned, when your character is slandered, your first, deepest, most human instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to clarify, to fight for the truth, to prove your innocence. And in that very first instinct, in that desperate, noble rush to be understood, you have already lost the war. You believe you are engaging in a battle of facts and reason, but you are not. You are accepting the frame of your accuser. You are validating their authority to put you on trial. You are stepping onto their field to play by their rules. And once they have that psychological high ground, they own the narrative. Even if you are factually right, you will still look emotionally guilty, because only the weak rush to explain. The strong, they let the silence burn. They let the accusation hang in the air, untouched and poisonous, knowing that it will eventually poison its source. Because they know the real move is this: turn the accusation into a mirror. Make your accuser doubt themselves. Make them look emotional, obsessed, bitter, unstable. Because the one who speaks first, the one who reacts out of a need for validation, is the one who loses control of the frame. And as Niccolò Machiavelli knew 500 years ago, whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. Men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims for his deceptions. Niccolò Machiavelli. This is not a simple communication trick. This is the art of psychological warfare. Most people defend themselves because they have been conditioned to crave vindication. They believe that if they just explain enough, clarify enough, repeat themselves enough, the world will see their good intentions and they will be absolved. But this belief comes from a place of emotional weakness, not strategy. It is the plea of a child wanting a parent to understand. You don't want clarity. You want control. Clarity is for therapy. Control is for power. And power does not come from being understood. It comes from being respected, feared, and ultimately untouchable. So when someone calls you arrogant, cold, selfish, or manipulative, and your immediate gut reaction is to say, "No, that's not true. You don't understand. You have already surrendered your power. You have proved you care what they think. You have put the ball in their court. And in doing so, you give up the most potent, most Machiavellian weapon you possess: mystery. Think of the most powerful people you have ever encountered. Not the loudest, not the most liked, not the most transparent. They were the ones who held silence like a weapon. The ones who, when attacked, never flinched. The ones who made you second guess not them, but yourself. Machiavelli would tell you this: he who explains submits. He who remains silent forces others to fill in the blanks. And they almost always overestimate the power of the one who can withstand the pressure of the void. That is the game. And today, we are going to teach you how to master it. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Niccolò Machiavelli today, we forge the fox, and we will use his cunning to build a fortress that no wolf can breach. 1. The shield of silence. Weaponizing the void, your first and most powerful weapon, is one you already possess, but have been taught to fear: silence. But not a passive, weak silence. A deliberate, heavy, strategic silence. A silence that becomes an active force. When you are attacked and you don't react, your opponent becomes psychologically uncomfortable. They expected a fight, a reaction, a validation of their attack's impact. You gave them nothing. You gave them a void. And the human psyche abhors a vacuum. This is a psychological principle known as horror vacui. Their mind, desperate to fill the void, begins to spiral. They start to doubt their own words. They look around for validation from others and find none. Suddenly, their carefully constructed power shrinks, while yours, in its stillness, expands. Because you have just done the one thing an emotionally driven person cannot handle. You have forced them to confront themselves. You let their accusation die in the echo of its own weakness. Let's make this tactical. You are in a business meeting. A colleague subtly undermines you, saying, "I'm not sure that strategy is really thought through." They are looking for a reaction. They want you to bite. Most people lean forward. They explain. They prove. They clarify. They get nervous. The room can smell the fear. But the Machiavellian operator, they lean back. They wait. Maybe they even offer a subtle, almost imperceptible smirk. And in that silence, the room is no longer judging your strategy. The room is judging your colleague's attack. The frame has flipped. Now, let's take it deeper, into the personal. Your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." The average person panics. They launch into explanations, reassurances, defenses. In doing so, they validate the emotional frame. They accept the premise that they have done something wrong. The Machiavellian approach is different. You don't dismiss them. You don't argue. You let the weight of the accusation hang in the space between you. You watch them feel their own drama echo in the silence. Then, with calm, you respond, "That's not how I see it." Short, grounded, no explanation, no justification. Now they feel uncertain. They question their own tone. They wonder if they were too reactive. In that moment, you held power over what matters most, the emotional tempo. And whoever controls the tempo controls the frame. There is an even colder tactic. Someone insults you online, don't reply. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge. But don't block them either. Let your absence sit like a mirror. Let them sit in the silence of being ignored. This breaks people in two ways. First, they realize you didn't even deem them worthy of a response. Second, they start spinning internal narratives, and most of the time, it destroys their composure. Why? Because the average person survives on emotional validation. Even in conflict, they need a reaction. If you take that away, they wither. They spiral. They post more. They try to bait a reply. And with every new attempt, they look weaker, more obsessed, more unhinged. All while you remain perfectly still. That is when you win. Not because you proved anything, but because they destroyed themselves trying to get a reaction from you. Power is not what you say. It's what people believe you could say, but choose not to. 2. The redirect. The art of the power judo throw. The second weapon is for when silence is not enough, when a verbal move is required. But it is never a defense. It is a redirect. A power judo throw. This is where it gets elite. Instead of defending yourself when attacked, you make their accusation look like a sign of their weakness. You use their own emotional force and turn it into their public collapse. Someone calls you arrogant. You don't say, "I'm not arrogant." You reframe it. Strange that confidence makes some people so uncomfortable. Someone says you're manipulative. You don't deny it. You redirect. Only people who can't be influenced say that. Someone calls you fake. You don't defend your authenticity. You expose their motive. Everyone says that when they stop getting what they want from you. Do you see what happened? You didn't just deny the accusation. You made it about their insecurity. Now, they are the ones scrambling to defend themselves. You used their own sword and turned it into their public collapse. This is what Machiavelli would call the turn of the blade. Do not meet the sword with a shield. Let the attacker fall on his own blade. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Niccolò Machiavelli. This speaks to a deeper truth about power. The world teaches you to be consistent, to defend your reputation. But Machiavelli saw the trap. He knew that the moment you chase innocence, you admit the possibility of guilt. The true strategist never plays that game. Instead, he appears too composed to be shaken, too elevated to care. And slowly, those who try to tear him down start looking unstable, reactive, jealous, weak. Because the more you defend, the more it looks like you need to. But the more you ignore, the more dangerous they assume you are. And in that assumption, power is born. 3. The precision cut, ending the game. The third and final weapon is the most surgical. It is the precision cut. These are short, sharp, status-asserting truths that end the game immediately. They are not defenses. They are declarations of a superior frame. They are designed to be unanswerable. Let's use our examples again. Someone says, "You're full of yourself." You respond, "Confidence upsets the insecure." They say, "You're fake." You respond, "I don't owe you authenticity." They say, "You think you're better than everyone?" You respond, "No, I just don't think like everyone." These are not statements of innocence. They don't say, "I'm not guilty." They say, "You can't touch me." And that is the core. The Machiavellian ideal never begs to be seen as good. He dares people to see him as bad and walks taller for it. When you refuse to defend yourself, something strange happens to your enemies. They become unhinged. They expected a battle, and instead, they are swinging at smoke. They escalate. They get more dramatic. They expose more of their insecurity. And the more they do, the more you rise in the eyes of others. Why? Because you have made them perform their own collapse. And that is the Machiavellian endgame. You don't destroy your enemies. You let their obsession with you destroy them. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Niccolò Machiavelli. You think being misunderstood is dangerous, but being predictable is far worse. The misunderstood man has mystery. The predictable man is easy to manipulate. Let's crush the final illusion. You don't need a good reputation to win. You need a strong one. The man with a good reputation is expected to be soft, agreeable. The man with a strong reputation is not always liked, not always trusted, but no one dares move against him casually. That is what happens when you never defend yourself. Your reputation becomes not about what people believe you did, but what they fear you will do next. That's how you flip the power. You stop fighting for approval, and instead, you create an aura that makes people cautious. Because even your silence feels like a decision. And every move you don't make becomes a move in their mind. A final evolution is not just silence, it's aura. A presence so composed, so secure, so far above the petty noise that accusations simply evaporate before they land. This doesn't come from being emotionless. It comes from being unbothered by design. Once you've trained yourself not to defend, not to explain, not to seek validation, you cross a line. A line where your very existence becomes your defense. And that is when power becomes effortless. Think about the few people in life who never explain themselves. They don't post long rants. They don't argue with critics. And yet, people respect them more. Why? Because silence in the face of accusation creates myth. It invites interpretation. And the human mind, when left without an explanation, fills the void with strength. People assume you must be dangerous. You must know something they don't. You must be so secure in who you are that you don't even blink when challenged. And that assumption, that is what makes people follow you. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Machiavelli didn't care about being good. He cared about being in control. And the one who never defends is always in control of perception. The more you explain yourself, the more alone you look. But if you remain calm, unfazed, people start to feel the urge to defend you. Suddenly, they become your shield. You build this power like a fortress, stone by stone, by choosing stillness over reaction, by never explaining more than you must, by understanding that when people don't know how to provoke you, they fear you. Because you become unpredictable, unreadable. A mirror, that reflects their own instability back at them. You don't win the argument. You end the argument before it starts. Because when you no longer defend yourself, people stop seeing you as someone who needs to be put on trial. You've moved beyond the court of public approval, and the only judgment that matters is your own. From this point on, you don't live in defense. You live in definition. You define your image. You define your tone. You define your silence. And that's when the room shifts. The crowd speaks less. Your enemies grow quieter. Your name carries weight, not because you fought for it, but because you never explained it. Every time you hold still while the world spins, you become the one thing they can't control. A man who answers to no one. This was not a lesson in communication. It was a lesson in power. If you are ready to stop explaining and start commanding, if you are ready to let your silence speak louder than their accusations, make a declaration. Comment below, I do not defend, I define. Subscribe, and learn to master the game that is played in the shadows.